My name is Clara Hayes. I'm 42 years old, and I'm a financial advisor specializing in estate planning. I help people organize their legacies, protect their assets, and ensure their wishes are honored. It's a job built on trust, foresight, and a clear understanding of human nature. What I didn't understand yet, not fully, was how much that understanding would apply to my own family. The text message arrived on Monday, November 20th, a mere 3 days before Thanksgiving. It wasn't from my mother, who usually handled holiday invitations, but from my older sister, Brenda. The words were clipped, almost surgical. Hey Clara. Just letting you know, we're keeping Thanksgiving small this year. Just immediate family. Think it's best if you sit this one out. We'll catch up later. Immediate family. As if I wasn't. My breath hitched, a sharp, cold jab to the ribs. My first instinct was to call, to demand an explanation, but I stopped myself. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a furious retort forming, but I deleted it. I looked at the sleek, black phone in my hand, then out my office window at the bustling city below. They wanted to exclude me? Fine. But they had no idea what they were actually excluding themselves from. They had no idea what my small estate had grown into, or how dramatically their decision would reshape their future. To understand why Brenda felt she could send such a message, you need to know a little about my family. We weren't wealthy growing up. My father worked hard as a carpenter, my mother as a school secretary. We lived comfortably, but every dollar was accounted for. Brenda, 3 years my senior, was always the favored child, the one who excelled in school without trying, the one who married young to Mark, a man with big dreams but little follow-through. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, studious one, the one who worked 3 jobs through college to pay for my business degree, the one who moved 2 states away from my first job, building my career from the ground up. My parents always said they were proud of me, but there was an undercurrent, a subtle disappointment that I wasn't closer to home, or that I hadn't settled down and had children like Brenda. Over the years, as my career flourished and Brenda and Mark's financial situation grew increasingly strained, that undercurrent shifted. It became less about my choices and more about my perceived obligations. The first hint of this entitlement came subtly. Brenda would call, not to chat, but to casually mention how expensive her kids' extracurricular activities were, or how their old car was on its last legs. Then came the loans. First, a few $100s for a school trip, then $1,000 for a can't-miss business opportunity for Mark. These were always presented as temporary, quickly repaid, but the repayments never materialized. When I gently reminded them, Brenda would get defensive, saying I was nickel-and-diming family, or didn't understand what it was like to raise a family on a tight budget. A few years ago, the requests escalated. Mark had a sure-thing investment in a friend's startup. He needed $25,000, promising a 20% return in 6 months. I, a financial advisor, saw the red flags immediately. No reputable investment guarantees such returns, especially from a fledgling startup. I politely declined, explaining the risks. Brenda was furious. You have so much, Clara. You could help your own sister. It's not like you need the money. That was when the numbers stopped looking accidental. It wasn't about helping, it was about taking. My parents, bless their hearts, were always caught in the middle. They'd listen to Brenda's complaints about my selfishness, then call me, hinting that I should be more understanding. They never outright demanded money, but their disappointment was palpable, especially around holidays. Thanksgiving, in particular, was always sacred. It centered around the antique cherrywood dining table in their house, a family heirloom passed down for generations. It was where we shared stories, laughter, and the unspoken bond of family. For me, it was the one place I truly felt I belonged, despite the growing distance. This past year, Brenda and Mark's situation had become dire. Mark's latest venture, a landscaping company, had failed spectacularly, leaving them in significant debt. Brenda had called me repeatedly, almost daily, with increasingly desperate pleas for a bridge loan to keep them afloat, hinting at foreclosure. I offered to help them connect with financial counselors, to review their budget, to even pay for a few months of their mortgage directly, but I refused to hand over a large sum of cash with no accountability. My job was to protect assets, and I knew a direct cash infusion would just delay the inevitable without addressing the underlying issues. My refusal had clearly been the final straw for Brenda. The immediate family text was her way of punishing me, of asserting control, of making me feel the sting of exclusion for not bending to her will. She wanted me to understand what it felt like to be cut off, hoping it would make me desperate enough to give in. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't desperate. I was simply done. I spent the next 2 days working, but my mind kept circling back to Brenda's text. Just immediate family. It was a deliberate, cruel blow. My own parents hadn't intervened, which spoke volumes. They were either complicit or too afraid to stand up to Brenda. The cherrywood dining table, once a symbol of warmth and belonging, now felt like a cold, empty space. I realized then that my family wasn't just struggling financially, they were struggling morally. They saw my wealth not as a testament to my hard work, but as a personal affront, something I owed them. I pulled up my personal financial statements. My net worth, primarily in a diversified portfolio and a couple of well-chosen real estate investments, had indeed reached approximately $6 million. It wasn't a number I flaunted, but it was a fact of my life, built over 2 decades of careful planning and diligent saving. I also reviewed my estate plan. I had a comprehensive will, a living trust, and clear directives for my assets. My beneficiaries included several charities, a scholarship fund in my grandparents' names, and a significant portion set aside for a future family, should I have one. My sister and her children were listed for a modest sum, enough to cover a few years of college tuition, but nothing that would enable their poor financial habits. My parents were provided for through a separate annuity. I thought about what Brenda had said, about immediate family. It was clear they didn't see me as part of it, unless I was a convenient ATM. This Thanksgiving, I decided, would be different. I wouldn't call and beg. I wouldn't send a desperate apology. I would go, not to eat their turkey, but to serve them a dose of reality. I needed to make them understand that actions have consequences, and that their entitlement had a price. On Thanksgiving morning, I dressed carefully. Not in a flashy way, but in a simple, elegant dress that spoke of quiet confidence. I drove the familiar route to my parents' house, the same route I'd taken countless times for holidays. My heart was a complex mix of sadness and resolve. I wasn't angry anymore, just profoundly disappointed. When I pulled into the driveway, Brenda's car and Mark's truck were already there, along with my parents' sedan. I took a deep breath, walked up the familiar path, and knocked on the front door. My mother answered, her eyes widening in surprise, then quickly narrowing with a flash of panic. "Clara? What are you doing here?" she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom," I said, my voice calm. "I thought I'd drop by. It's a family tradition, after all." Before she could respond, Brenda appeared behind her, arms crossed, her face a mask of indignation. "I told you we were keeping it small, Clara. What part of 'sit this one out' didn't you understand?" "Oh, I understood perfectly, Brenda," I replied, stepping past my mother into the entryway. The scent of roasted turkey and sage filled the air, a cruel reminder of all the Thanksgivings past. I just decided that small could still include me. After all, I am family. Or, at least, I used to be. Mark emerged from the living room, a half-eaten dinner roll in his hand, his expression a mixture of annoyance and surprise. My father, usually quiet, stood by the antique cherrywood dining table, which was laden with food, staring at me with a pained expression. The table, the centerpiece of every family gathering, looked strangely diminished, almost accusatory, under the weight of their resentment. "Look, Clara, this isn't the time," Brenda began, her voice rising. I held up a hand. "No, Brenda. This is precisely the time. You excluded me from Thanksgiving. Not because of space, or a small gathering, but because I wouldn't give you $25,000 for Mark's latest failed venture. You wanted to punish me for not being your personal bank. You wanted to make me feel isolated, hoping I'd cave. The room went silent. Mark's jaw dropped. My mother wrung her hands. My father looked at the floor. That's a nasty thing to say, Clara, Brenda hissed, her face flushed. We just thought you might be busy, or that you needed a break. No, you didn't, I countered, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. You sent a text, explicitly telling me to sit this one out. And my parents, who are supposed to love me unconditionally, said nothing. They let you do it. I looked at my parents, who couldn't meet my gaze. You know what? I continued, pulling a folded document from my purse. It wasn't my entire will, but a summary of my current estate holdings and charitable intentions, carefully redacted for privacy, but clearly showing the significant figures. I came here today not to eat, but to deliver a message. You wanted to exclude me from Thanksgiving. And in doing so, you've excluded yourselves from something far more significant. I laid the document on the cherrywood table, next to a platter of mashed potatoes. As a financial advisor, I help people plan their futures. My own future, and my legacy, is carefully planned. My estate, which currently stands at approximately $6 million, is fully accounted for. Brenda scoffed. 6 million? Oh, please. You're exaggerating. I assure you, I'm not, I said, tapping the document. And up until a few days ago, my estate plan included a significant trust for your children's education, and a substantial gift to you, Brenda, to help you get back on your feet once you demonstrated a commitment to financial literacy. My parents also had their annuity secured, of course. My mother looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes, quickly replaced by confusion. My father remained silent. But your actions, Brenda, and your silence, Mom and Dad, have made me realize something important, I continued. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, trust, and unconditional love, not transactional demands. You've shown me that you value my money more than you value me. I picked up the document again. So, I've decided to amend my estate plan. The trust for my nieces and nephews will now be directed to the scholarship fund I've established in my grandparents' names, available to any deserving student, not just family. The gift I had earmarked for you, Brenda, will be redirected to a charity that supports financial literacy for women. My parents' annuity remains untouched, of course, as that was always about their security, not their approval of my sister's behavior. Brenda gasped, her face turning crimson. You can't do that. That's blackmail. You're cutting off your own family. No, Brenda, I said, my voice firm. I'm setting a boundary. You chose to exclude me from Thanksgiving, from a place where I thought I belonged. And in doing so, you've chosen to exclude yourselves from my generosity. My estate, my hard-earned money, will now serve purposes that align with my values, education, empowerment, and genuine charity. Not enabling entitlement. Mark finally found his voice. This is ridiculous, Clara. You're going to throw away family over a stupid holiday dinner? It was never just about the dinner, Mark. It was about years of disrespect, of being treated as a resource, not a sister, not a daughter. This Thanksgiving was just the final, humiliating straw. I looked at my parents. I love you both, but your inability to stand up for me, to protect me from Brenda's manipulations, has also made me realize that some relationships need clear boundaries to survive. I folded the document and put it back in my purse. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy the meal. I turned, walked back to the door, and let myself out. The silence in the house behind me was deafening. I didn't look back. The drive home was quiet, filled with a profound sense of loss, but also a strange, liberating peace. The cherrywood dining table, I realized, was just a piece of furniture. The true foundation of family had been eroded long ago, and my decision today, though painful, was about rebuilding my own sense of self-worth on solid ground.